everyone. Today we are back to the HyperNest Podcast with a super special guest, Merlin, one of the co-founder of Morpho, and we are super excited to discuss about the super intriguing the design decision of Morpho, one of the most interesting innovation in the lending space in the last years. Before we get into the details of the protocol design and potentially the vision and the strategy about the future of Morpho and lending in general, I would like to ask an introduction from Merlin. So maybe you can tell us something about you. How did you get into DeFi? And of course, how did you start?
Okay. Right. First, like Alessio, thank you for hosting this. I'm super glad to be here. A bit about myself. I starting going into the DeFi space, like first in the blockchain space, just because I was interested in finance and like, economy, and I was like thinking, oh, this is completely broken. What's a solution that could like fix everything? And I fall in quite in love into the blockchain space and dive a bit more into this. And because I was in engineering school, I told myself like why not like diving in it, trying to code and contribute to different projects. So I started contributing to Common Stack, Giveth, so like open source projects, and then I did smart contract reviews, so learning about solidity, smart contract security, those kind of things. And I wanted to create like a DeFi project, and at the time, like in parallel, like Paul had one of my co-founders had a professor at like a prestigious university who had like two ideas. One who is called Mangrove, which is another French project, DeFi project, and Morpho, which was like the first version of Morpho, the Morpho optimizers. And he wanted to create a team around that. So he brought like some friends, and at some point he called me because he knew that I was in the smart contract field, etc. So, and I was like diving into the lending space around like credit delegation and Avid at that moment. And he told me like, hey, I have like super idea on like creating a new type of lending protocol. Are you in? And of course I was in. So and that's how we started with the. So we were like four co-founders, and we started in 2021, something like that. And that's how Morpho went alive.
That's super interesting. You also collaborated with Claris. I mean, I checked.
Yeah. So during my studies, I had to do to do some internships. I wanted to improve my skills into the DeFi space, and I think they were the only one like to have interns doing smart contract things. I remember, by the way, asking, I think Stani from Aave, I
Mhm.
DM'd in to get an internship at Aave, but they they
Didn't
were
want.
not searching for like junior profiles, right? And which makes sense because smart contract is like super you need to have like a very high standard in terms of like security and those kind of things. So having a junior might not be the right move. But Clearus was like a very cool opportunity for me.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, let's get straight into it. Let's go into the details. I think that the design decision behind Morpho are really not short than revolutionary. For sure, I think it's almost like a modular approach. I know that modularity now it's one of the biggest buzzwords, but I think it for Morpho
Yeah,
actually
completely.
makes sense, right? Now everything is modular. At some point, every pitch deck had the
What
modularity.
what what we prefer now is like a reaggregated, which
Yeah.
we think is like more aligned like with Morpho's design.
Yeah. So an aggregation, let's say, of different function. For example, the risk curator, and something
It's
like
more
that.
about like the liquidity, but maybe we can talk about that later
Yeah.
on. Um,
Okay. So there are a lot of, let's say, super interesting innovation like the isolated market, the governance minimization, the super famous 650 lines of code, if I remember correctly,
Yep, exactly.
the, the separation of risk management. All of those have been very interesting and innovative design decision. And I would like to ask you, so how did you come out with this specific design? Maybe a lot of learning from the optimizer, what would be one of the guesses. And second, what are the advantages for builders and users using this new primitive?
Right. So like starting the story, so we started the optimizer on top of Compound and Aave. So those were like protocols on top of those underlying platforms, and we were doing like peer-to-peer matches between like lenders and borrowers so that like we could increase and reduce the spread between the supply rate and the borrower rate to zero. And so suppliers and borrowers coming to Morpho optimizers, it was basically a win-win situation where on both sides they enjoyed like a better rates. So that was the cool part for users. The problem was it was built on top of other platforms that could be upgraded at any moment, and where the risk parameters could be updated every day, where some functions could be paused, etc. And we were working as close as it's possible to build a protocol on top of another protocol. So the optimizers are like very they are like very sensitive to what's happening at the underlying level, and it proved to be super challenging to build on top. So after a year and a half or 2 years, we realized like it's not sustainable. We can't build like if we want to bring the whole financial system on top of those kind of platforms, it's not possible. It won't work because like something will break at some point, because it's not immutable, because like everything can be updated, etc. So when we realized that we wanted to create like our own lending protocol that is fully independent for others, and that is fixing everything that we all the problematics that we faced, and basically like provide the builder experience that we would have preferred to enjoy like while building on top of Aave and Compound. And so we created Morpho, which is like we stripped out like all the unnecessary features, edge cases that you need to take into account when building on top of Aave and Compound. And so we took like a very minimalistic approach on like how to build a protocol, and every feature that is like not necessary, you just remove it because it increases the attack surface, and you end up like with a very general primitive on which that is fully immutable, on which like everyone can build on top. And because it's fully immutable, you know how it will behave, and that's for the rest of like I mean forever. I mean, as long as like Ethereum is running, like Morpho's protocol won't change its behavior, and that is very very powerful when we are talking about like money Legos and like interoperability, etc. But if you have like you are plugged into a protocol that is upgradable, like you
Yep.
need to have your protocol to be upgradable as well, because if there's like something breaking happening at the underlying level, then your integration is blows up, and this happened in the past, and they like I think Aave like upgraded their protocol, which like broke different integrations, and so they needed to roll back that upgrade so that like those integration could like continue working again. And with Morpho, you don't have this problem because it's fully mutable. Like the governance is minimized, so you can't change the market parameters, and so you have like an insurance on like what how it will behave.
Well, I love this characteristic, right? So the immutability make Morpho one of the best, probably money Lego, right? Things will not break because we
Yeah,
are not going to
exactly,
change it because we cannot change it, right?
exactly.
And probably this become a crazy good foundation. We will also investigate this a little bit later on for other builders to use
Yeah,
Morpho,
yeah.
and to build on top of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what about the users? I think there are also these design decisions also provide a lot of advantages for the users. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Right. So if I come back on how Morpho is designed, so you have that lending primitive on which like anyone can create any market that you want. So you select a collateral asset, loan asset, the collateral factor we call LTV, the oracle, and the interest rate model. Once you have selected that, you can deploy a market, and this market, like you can't change those risk parameters later on. And all markets are isolated. The cool thing about that is, as a lender, um, instead of like being exposed to all the assets that are deposited into like a liquidity pool such as Aave or Compound, you are only exposed to the market that on which like you are deploying your capital. So on top of Morpho, you have those bunch of like vaults that are managed by risk curators that are depositing users liquidity into like selected markets, and usually they select the market that are like in align with the vault's risk profile. So you can have like a very risk averse vault deploying capital into like blue chip markets, while you can have like a degen vault with higher yield but into deploying capital into like more riskier markets. And the cool thing is like whatever shit happens into those riskier markets, it won't affect any other market. So you can scale to an infinite number of markets without increasing the overall systemic risk of the whole protocol, which is like very different from Aave or Compound, where you have like a one size fits all risk profile, and where any new asset is like just basically like bringing more risk to every other users using that lending pool.
Yeah. So I really love this idea of potentially optionality, right? Because the users can, pick and choose the level of risk that you want to be exposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
And also with the concept of vault, as you were saying, there might be a vault that is a little bit more degen, okay, whatever, we're all gonna make it, or another one, okay, super risk adverse. So I think it's very, 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 very interesting for the users out there. Um, okay, thanks a lot for these interesting overview. It was a little bit of warming up questions. Usually our audience are more builders and DeFi
Okay.
super passionate about. So maybe we can also ask you more detailed questions about
Okay.
the design of the protocol in itself.
Right.
Um, for example, something that for me was very, very fascinating, it was the liquidity incentive factor.
Okay.
And I was looking at the function and I see that there is essentially an inverse relationship between the LIF and LLTV, right? So
Okay.
the more, right? So do you want to maybe give us a little bit more
Yeah.
background? So why the
So
inverse function exists?
just like the LIF is like the liquidation, sorry, incentive factor.
Yeah.
So basically the bonus that you get when you liquidate a position.
Yes.
And the LLTV is like the close factor that you can find in other protocols. And so as I said, like when you reduce the LLTV, usually it's because like the overall risk of that the asset or the market in general is higher, just because like maybe the assets as collateral or as loan asset are like more volatile.
Yeah.
So you want to reduce the collateral factor. And also you want to have like a liquidation happening fast, right? So and to incentivize the liquidation, how do you do this is through the liquidation incentive factor. So the hence like this relationship between like, okay, you reduce the LTV, that means like you're dealing with like a riskier asset, a riskier market. So you want to increase that liquidation bonus to reflect that, and having like liquidation like faster and prevent some bad debt to happen at the market level.
That
And
makes a
again,
lot of
like
sense.
this bad debt will only affect that specific markets and not the other ones.
That make a lot of sense. So if you have, let's say, a market that is somehow safer with strong correlated assets, let's say wet W stat, in that
Yeah.
specific case, probably the LLTV is going to be higher, and therefore the LIF is going to be lower, I
Yeah, you
guess.
may have like 96, something like that, and you just need like a very small bonus because there's like a deep liquidity on dexes, like a strong competition, etc. So, yeah, totally.
Nice, very nice. And also, I was also studying the interest rate models, so in
Hmm.
particular the function. I found it's ultra sexy. So the way how basically behave and adjust, I think it try to optimize to 90% LTV. Is that
Yeah,
right?
utilization of the market.
Yeah,
So
that's
basically, it's targeting that utilization. Oh, sorry. Perhaps you had like a specific question on
no,
this.
no, please. I mean, yeah, maybe you can give us maybe
Okay.
a general, description of it, and then maybe if we can go a little bit deeper, I have additional questions.
So first, there's one part that is very similar to other lending protocols. So there's two parts on the interest rate model. There's like the curve part and the adaptive part. The
Hmm.
curve part is like very similar to Aave, I think maybe Fluid or like many other lending protocols where like at lower utilization. Yeah, exactly. Lower utilization increases like smoothly, and then you have a kink, and which is like on our side like at 90% utilization, and then the rate spikes just to reflect that there's a large demand, and then the borrow rate will increase, incentivizing more either lenders to deposit more or borrowers to repay because like rate is too high. That's the curve part, but there's the adaptive part, which is like a nice way of having like market-driven automation in a sense. Like let's say the utilization has been like 100% for a long time. This means maybe that there's like a strong demand at the market level. And for instance, right now, many people are looping and they are doing like if USDC just because they want to go long if because of like maybe a potential bull run or something like that.
Yeah.
Here, the market might be like a bit irrational and like trying to borrow as much as possible. And if you only have that curve, maybe at 100% utilization, the rate is not high enough to reflect like the new market conditions, the macro condition that are like a bull run. And here, the adaptive um, mechanism will just like move upward that curve over the day. So for instance, at 100% utilization every 5 days, the rates will double basically. And so like if you start at 2%, then in 5 days at 4, then in 5 days at 8, etc., etc. And this way you can reflect like the new market condition, and it could like also be okay. The Fed has decreased the rates, and this is like either you go through governance or you choose like a more market-driven approach. And we choose this as kind of solutions because we are kind of like we try to remove as much as possible the governance. The governance aspect into the protocol.
Yeah, I mean, super fascinating, super sexy, these IRM. And I have another question. I also like a lot the idea that you have these Oracle agnostic design. Say, okay, bring your own Oracle. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, my question is because this I didn't see, maybe I missed this part, you know. I think that it's beautiful because you have a lot of flexibility. You can just decide what fit you best. You can use basically the price fit coming from, I guess, an AMM. You can use Chainlink, Pit, whatever, I guess. Um, my question is it possible to use more than one method at the same time in case one fail, you can use basically a fallback?
Yeah, totally, totally. So in fact, it's just like our protocol is waiting for like one interface, basically like oh, I want the price for this kind of this market or this asset, etc. And and so as long as you answer that standard, then you can plug anything. So you can have, so we created a factory for deploying, sorry, Oracle that are like Chainlink compliant, but of course, like the market that we have, there's not only Chainlink, but there's Redstone, there's PIF, there's Chronicle. I mean, there are many oracles because not all oracles are like supporting all assets that are present now on top of Morpho. But so we have that factory. But of course, like if you want to deploy your oracle, then you can, and you have like some custom oracles that have been deployed by like Pendle.
Mm-hmm.
I think usual also has some customer oracles, and Moonwell is willing to deploy an upgrade. No, sorry, an oracle with a fallback. I think for BTC, the BTC asset, LBTC, sorry, where for instance, the it's taking, I think, uh, maybe the BTC price, like general BTC price, unless there's a very large depeg. And then if there's a very large depeg, then it's falling back to the market price, so that like no bad debt can be created on the market. But to prevent having flash liquidation because of very change on the market price, and this happened recently on Euler, where some users get liquidated because there was a crash on the market price. But because the Oracle was also using market price, then people get liquidated, even though like the crash was super like on a super short amount of time. So
Yeah.
they want to have like this double logic so that they can prevent those kind of liquidations. Totally
Yeah,
doable.
I think it's super cool that you have, you give a lot of flexibility to builders to essentially to create and integrate their own logic. Uh, I think there is a big also. I think you touched already briefly to it, to the big topic of rehypothecation versus not rehypothecation of in general the collateral. And I would like to ask you what are basically the key advantages for this
Yeah.
specific type of design, and also if you see any specific disadvantages.
Right. So by default, Vault are not rehypothecated on Morpho. The design choices, because we want to give like most flexibility and the capacity for people to choose their risk profile and like to which market they want to get exposure to. So we don't want it to have that enshrined at the protocol level, but you can do it on Morpho. So you could create a vault that is deploying capital into more markets and deploy a new market with this vault as collateral to borrow assets. Um, from the start, we haven't seen like much need for this because mainly I think like people were not sophisticated enough, or it was early, and but now that Morpho get how it works. I mean, users are getting how Morpho is working. I think it could make sense like to have those kind of hypotheticated vaults in the near future. We are working on like a vault that can do this like specifically, so that it would be easier. This might be this will be a new version that will be shipped. But yeah, so. I think there's and there's also rehypothecation into other protocols. We'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see whether there will be traction on this. When I'm talking about integrating vaults into Uniswap v3 or like Balancer v3, Uniswap v4, sorry, and Balancer v3 as like to create like boosted pools or those kind of things.
Well, it seems to be a big trend at this point. So
Yeah,
probably you
yeah,
will
yeah. But
experiment a little bit in that direction.
their trend, and like actually like think that also has a product market fit. So you need to make the right decision, and yeah,
Okay, very cool. So I like these one more time, this optionality. You say, okay, well, by design, we don't rehypothecate, but if you want to rehypothecate,
yeah,
it is
yeah.
possible.
We want full flexibility for
Mhm.
builders, so that like you if you use Morpho, you don't subscribe to anything at the start, and you just like opt in if you want to. If you want to, for instance, we are working on a pre-liquidation mechanism to soften like the liquidation for borrowers. If
Oh,
as a borrower you don't want to use this, it's not mandatory. It's not at the primitive level. But if you do want to use that, just subscribe to that smart contract. If you want to I don't know, create like your a new market, then you can. If you want to use rehypothecation, like you can, but it's not natively at the primitive level.
okay. So I think you touched on a very interesting topic. So you're saying that there might be in the future also the possibility to have soft liquidation, because I think by
Yeah,
design now it's not possible, right?
yeah, exactly. In fact, how we see Morpho is like you have this infrastructure, and on top of which you can create like any project that you want that are
Hmm.
filling the gap for specific persona.
Hmm.
So you have like some users that are super sophisticated and they want to access the liquidity at the market level, etc. You have very passive users that wants just to deposit their fund and like forget. So those people will deploy capital into the Morpho vaults. You want some people want to borrow and leverage, but maybe they don't want to be liquidated fully, etc. Because at the primitive level, the liquidation system is quite is primitive. So you have this liquidation incentive that is adapted to the LLTV, but the close factor. So the close factor is like how much collateral at max the liquidator can seize. It's at 100% on Morpho. On overlanding protocols, usually you have like 50%. Why is that?
Yeah.
It's because on top of Morpho, you can create a new kind of liquidation system that borrowers can subscribe to, and then you can play with those risk parameters. So, for instance, the pre-liquidation system that we are working on allows you to select a close factor and
Hmm.
a pre-LLTV. So basically an LLTV that is a bit lower. So you'll be pre-liquidated a bit earlier in the time, but it will be only a small percentage of your collateral, and the liquidation incentive will be lower. And this, after the liquidation, should put your position back above water. So as a borrower, you could subscribe to that service and like enjoy having like when the price drop, you can a bit more
You can
enjoy a
sleep
bit
well
more.
at night.
Yeah,
You can still sleep at night.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I love that. I really love it. I didn't know that you were already working on that. Very cool.
Yeah, because
Um,
we get some
okay.
requests, and it's super easy to
Yeah.
build on top of Morpho because like the code is super simple and it is very flexible.
Very, very solid. I love that. Okay, so now zooming a little bit out of the scene and thinking a little bit about the competition or in general money markets. So after Morpho, I think that many other money market, including Aave or Euler, for example, they started to adopt more isolated market strategies, according to my knowledge. How do you see in general the lending space evolving in terms of architecture?
Yeah. I think like what we've pioneered with like the Lightning protocol, super flexible, general. that is owning the accounting side of thing, and externalized management will be something that will be replicated by many others. So you have symbiotic meadow on the risk taking sorry side of things, that have like exactly the same design. And I think it's smart because of course you can't have one size fits all model where, again, like if you want to have the whole financial system on chain, you'll have thousands of different risk profile, and they won't use like the same service provider, the same risk manager, the same fund, the same protocol. So you need to cater to all those different profiles, and the only way you can scale this is by having isolated markets and external risk management where anyone can set up their vault and like do the risk management of the asset and select which exposure you want to have. And I'm not talking only about lending, because you have this with risk taking of ETH, but also on of BTC. Uh, anyway, whenever there's risk management, uh, I think we'll see this trend happening. And to me, this is the only way that you can scale to more fintechs, institutions, centralized exchange coming into the DeFi space.
Yeah, I mean, I also completely believe in it because if I understand it correctly, if you have, for example, all the collateral together, well, there is, for example, rehypothecation. Every time you're adding a new type of collateral, you are basically increasing
Yeah,
by, I don't
and
know, how many X the
and
complexity and
the
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 amount of
black the BlackRock of the world won't say we are okay to deposit into that protocol. No, they won't, because they will say like it's too risky. They want like some guarantees. They want like to know to which they are landing, or they want to really like constrain their exposure to like very to a basket of different assets. And on top of Morpho, it's like completely doable.
fantastic. Okay, looking a little bit in toward the future strategy, the future vision. I would like to touch to one probably an enormous topic, the topic of real world assets. Right? Everyone I was talking about
Right.
real world assets, and personally, I believe that we're going to have a billion, if not trillion, of real world assets. So we're not going to call also them real world assets at some point. They would just
Yeah,
be
it would be
much
just random assets, like normal assets.
financial assets. They would just basically be on
Yeah,
chain,
yeah, exactly. Assets.
right? Assets. What's how the vision of Morpho is connected also with this integration, deep integration of real world assets in the blockchain space, if there is already a vision in that direction. But I think
Right.
yes.
So I think it will. I definitely agree. We'll see like billions and or trillions of those kind of assets like, coming on chain. The only problem I think right now is the rates. Because DeFi rates are crazy because of maybe the bull run vibes, etc. So keyword assets are not really competitive against that. But if we enter again a bear market where you have lower DeFi rates in general and more maturity of the ecosystem, I think real-world as sorry, a real-world asset will bring more stability into the system, more reliable yield than the DeFi asset that we're seeing. And this kind of stability is really needed in that space. So um, yeah, definitely Morpho is like looking into those reward assets. We have already a bunch of markets deployed on Morpho. We have Midas, Centrifuge. Centrifuge markets are like gated by like Coinbase attestation. So on Morpho, you can already create it permission or not permission markets, collateralized by reward asset to borrow USD. And those are the kind of use case that we are exploring more and more. The only problem, as I say, is like the rates are not competitive yet. So in terms of product market fit on lending protocols, it has not taken off yet. but I'm pretty sure it won't. And we have seen like Stakehouse USDC, Stakehouse, sorry, has a strategy, for instance, where it's like a dual engine where they are deploying capital into both blue chip DeFi markets and real-world asset markets, so that like whenever the rate is better on the real-world asset sides, then they will deploy that capital here, and if not, then they will turn to the blue chip asset like a Rapid ETH or WBTC. And so, yeah, that's
I think it's
right.
super healthy. I think it's super healthy, and I'm super excited about it because, well, I'm always doing, my on-chain operation since there was no DeFi. And I remember at
Oh,
some
well.
point when we were crying, so there was basically no yield. All of a sudden, Treasury bill, started to
Yeah,
pop up,
exactly. It's
and
like
they pulled
you
up
have like
our APY.
5%. Yeah,
Yes,
5% natively, while like everything is like 1-2%. Of course, like people at this moment, people will enjoy the real world asset. That's for sure.
absolutely. I think we should have a little bit more, ideally, anti-fragility in our DeFi space, and therefore the real-world assets probably will bring us, a little bit outside of the water if we're going to have a bear market as we had in the past. If.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, very, very cool. So you mentioned also about permissioned markets. Do you think that these a possibility also having permissioned markets, as you already have some, would be also the key for institutional adoption in Connect for Morpho?
Yeah, I think so. To me, institutions are blocked by two things. So you have the legal aspect, uh, are they compliant, etc., and the security aspect. So the security aspect is because you've seen the billions of dollars have been hacked. Forgot the years on mostly bridges, but also landing protocols, etc. So the whole DeFi space is quite unsafe for institution that has like reputation at stake. So they they don't have the right to lose the money of their users, right? So I think there's like a lot of education to do on our side to present new DeFi protocols in a safer way, and to onboard them on the stack, and also to overall increase the security and guarantees and security guarantees of the whole DeFi space. So that's a work that the DeFi world should do. On the legal aspect, it's more about okay, they are regulated, but right now it's not clear what they should or should not do. And so I think this is a huge burden for them to enter the DeFi space, because they are doing like proof of concept, those kind of things, discussing with DeFi protocols. We are discussing with a lot of institutions, but they are always slow, and the biggest problem is right, the legal aspect. And permissioning markets is one way to make sure that they are compliant. So maybe they can't lend to people from that Lazarus group or whatever. So they need some guarantees on chain that they are not lending to those kind of people. On Morpho, you can create a market that is fully permissioned, which is cool for the use case. But the problem is, okay, but that's too bad because you prevent you to access more liquidity, and which is a pity because Morpho we were saying, okay, there are many isolated markets, but what a vault manager can do is enable what we call a public allocator contract and set some flows between markets. And so, as a borrower, if there is not enough liquidity on market A, let's say, but there's a vault deploying capital into market B and market A, and that has enabled that flow between those two markets. Then as a borrower, I can trigger a reallocation of liquidity from market B to market A so that I can borrow. And so that's how you reaggregate the liquidity on the borrower side. And one cool thing is like all USDC, all markets with USDC as loan asset could share the liquidity.
Hmm.
And and if you are creating a isolated market, of course, you're breaking that capacity of sharing liquidity between markets. But the cool thing is like you can also permission just one side. So maybe as a lender, I want to be sure that the borrowers that are borrowing my liquidity are not from Lazarus Group. So I'm requiring a KYC. But on the lending side, you could say, hey, anyone can deposit capital. And this way you can have like multiple vaults depositing capital into that market so that there's even more liquidity. So you can have like this very granular approach depending on the requirements of the different institutions and their legal constraints.
Okay. So it can be permissioned on one side, on the borrower side, on the lender
Yeah,
side,
exactly.
a different configuration. Plus, I think there was something super interesting that you mentioned at the beginning of this specific. I mean, everything was super interesting, but this part really caught my attention. Was related to the possibility, if I'm, let's say, a borrower, to create any specific logic that might trigger a change in market. So I might decide potentially to,
Yeah,
borrow maybe a little bit from here or to
yeah.
there, as long as there are specific market conditions that are met, or maybe I don't know, maybe the utilization spike in one specific market, we pass the 90%, it become too high, so I can potentially re-borrow from another place. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Actually, we didn't talk about that, but we created what we call the bundler contract on top of Morpho. And
Mm-hmm.
again, this is the cool thing about Morpho. It's like you can create like so many building blocks that are like improving the overall user experience. So coming back to the bundle contract, it's bundling actions, many actions into one single transaction for the user, even in EOA. So if you come to our front end, maybe you'll have like to do one signature and just one signature to approve your token. But what you can do is batch an approval, a supply collateral, and a BOR into one single action. And so that's the cool thing that you can do with the bundler. You can also maybe claim your rewards, your Morpho rewards, and all any other rewards at the same time. And there's another thing, what I was saying, you have this public allocator contract that can be set up by risk manager. They are setting it, they are choosing like what are the flow caps, etc. Because they are managing the risk of their vault. And this can be taken advantage for by borrowers. So if you go to our front end, we abstract everything. And before the borrower, what we'll do, if there's not enough liquidity, we'll bundle a reallocation of liquidity, like from like several markets to the market on which you are borrowing, because maybe there was not enough liquidity. And so to enable your borrower, we'll like just in time reallocate the liquidity and make the borrow. And that's fully abstracted by the front end. And we have some integrators that are currently integrated that functionality like DeFi Saver, Contango, Summer Finance, so that like even like people that are willing to leverage or do whatever they want on the borrower side, they can tap into much more liquidity than they can right now.
Super cool. This is basically Morpho is a Transformers. So don't stop computing, don't
Yeah,
stop
it's
building
like
new pieces.
it's like a chrysalis, like you're from you see you have that caterpillar and then it morphs into like a wonderful butterfly. It's basically it.
Fantastic. I love that. All right, all right. So it seems. Actually, I have one question regarding the composition of the collateral because I was trying
Yep,
to study a little bit all the Dune things yesterday. But by design, of course, you have the possibility to onboard more exotic assets as a collateral, right? Because of
yep,
all the
yep,
decisions
yep.
that we've been discussing so far. But do you already have, so in terms of composition, so if you
Mhm.
have some data about it, well, what would
Oh,
be now the amount of blue chips versus more exotic assets, if you have some information about it?
in terms of volume or in terms of markets? Because I
In
think
terms of,
like in terms of volume, I'd say like maybe 80% is like blue chip ass. Oh, Actually, I don't know. Do you consider USDE and SUSDE as blue chip? Maybe not, but it's like 800 mil on Morpho, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, and that this is considered like way more riskier than WBTC or wrap SEIF, but
Yeah.
still like it's a significant amount of volume on top of Morpho. Um, I think in terms of markets, to be honest, I don't have the data in mind. But there are many markets that are like with long tail assets, also like more and more PT tokens as collateral that can
Mhm.
be considered as way riskier than like the blue chip assets.
Yeah.
Um, and there is volume actually on those markets. So it's an interesting trend. Um, I think we'll see more and more of that because for many protocols or stablecoins, etc., having them being listed in a lending protocol is one of the key things that you want to do for your distribution, right? So
Yeah.
I think we'll see more and more of that, especially in the bull run when like, many new projects will pop up. We'll see how it goes after this because, of course, maybe like 90% of the different assets that are live today won't be live in 4 years or something like that. But we'll see.
Well, I see it exactly in the same way. So I do expect, I don't have the final number. I was trying to collect numbers yesterday, but I do expect, that this long tail will become very, very important because, as you said, every project
Yeah, yeah.
want to be in a money market, right? So why not?
Okay, very nice.
Um, okay, so I think that so far we've been describing a little bit the functionality of Morpho, and of course, it seems the Morpho is the perfect place where to build, right? For the functionality, for the, let's say, modularity, for the
At least it's simple.
flexibility. Yeah, for the
If you
simplicity.
want to understand how Morpho is working, it's like, as you said, 600 lines of code. You just read it. We made it as if it was an article. So it's super simple to be onboarded on the code base.
Well, but the minimalistic approach is super elegant, right? Like
Mm.
there was the old saying, "Oh, I wrote you 3 pages letter, but then I spent 2 hours more, so I summarize it in 10 lines," right? So
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
okay, so going back to these, so considering that you are in essence really building a new primitive that can be
Hmm.
used, changed, integrated, and so on and so forth, and you have also launched, recently, I guess, a grant program. So
Yeah,
maybe do you want to tell something to the builders that are listening to us? So what is the grant program, and what
right.
would you like to see built on top of Morpho?
So recently we had the token launch, so we thought maybe it's good to like push for this kind of grant program. It's just a pilot, 200K more for tokens. One thing that I think that the DAO should like strive for is um, avoiding like giving giving money away as if it was like it does not matter.
Yeah.
And this is why we want to tie a grant to very like key metrics instead of funding like everything. We want things that are like that can be sustainable from like a business perspective, or that are very good return on investment on top of Morpho. So how is the pilot described? Is you can apply, 20% will be given upfront, then 20% upon release, but the rest, so most of the grant is given away uh, on results. So, and I think this is a good way to align the grants with the protocol's network growth, because on many grants they're just like giving funds away and you don't really see what is like the benefit for the protocol, and I think that we should like tie the output to the protocol network.
I completely agree with you. We've been speaking with a lot of foundations, in particular for the grant in general, or even for the hackathon, right? So everyone was kind of spray and pray money and say maybe something will stick. But
Mm.
the main problem that we have observed is really that the grant were not for per milestone as you are doing. In fact, I think it's a very great integration. And the second problem that we also observed was not only the grant per milestone, but no one was checking the milestone. That's
Yeah, yeah,
another
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
We have
That's
milestone, right?
another problem. So you need to have like
So
a very few project, I guess, so that you can like overview everything.
yeah, absolutely. Or you need to have someone to potentially to support you
Yeah,
in
exactly.
HyperNest, just for doing a little bit of shilling, how to shilling.
Yeah, yeah, you can. It's your podcast. So.
All right. But okay, going a little bit more into the details of it.
Mhm.
What would you like to see? What make you super
Yeah,
excited? We
good
discussed a
question.
little bit about bundling. We discussed about soft liquidation. We discussed advanced logic for borrowing, just-in-time liquidity. A lot of cool stuff are already happening. What do you want to see more?
Um, I think a cool thing I would see is one front end maybe that is like fully decentralized, not relying on our API, not relying on our SDKs. Um, that is like fully independent for Morpho, so that even though like our API is crashing, our front end is down, etc., you can still access Morpho. So I think I would be glad to see this. And yeah, I think it's important for to have like this resiliency, redundancy of front ends. I think it's healthy for the protocol. I don't think it will bring more like liquidity into the network, etc. But I think it's just like a plan B for users. So that could be a cool thing to build actually.
Yeah.
Um, what else? I maybe like some experimentation around AI, agent, those kind of things. So, I mean, anyone is talking about that. I'm curious to see if there will be like very I mean, things working and with like product market fit on top of DeFi protocols. Yeah, I'm just like genuinely curious about that, and maybe we can have like some grants. The problem with that is like it's hard to say whether it's like bullshit or not. So I think we should be more cautious about like reviewing those kind of projects. Yeah. After I don't know, like surprised us.
Surprise us. Well, we'll of course share the information also with the startups in our ecosystem. We have more than 500 startups that are connected with us in one way or another,
Oh,
and
wow.
of course we'll share your grant program that I've been reading already. So if anyone have a great idea, I will definitely forward them to you. And well,
Very
regarding
nice.
AI agent, I have your idea, right? So far, I think 99.9% have been meme coin AI based with a touch a little bit of LLM on top. Great, so you can talk with a meme coin, cool stuff. But I would like to see really DeFi heavy agent, right? And then we
Yeah,
tokenize it. This is cool. Let's do it,
yeah, yeah.
right? Um, okay, and what do you want to suggest to other builders that are building in the DeFi space or that they want to bring more innovation in the DeFi space?
Right. That's a very good question. I think that right, like DeFi is like a very nice sandbox where you can pretty much like do everything from your computer and from your dorm room or whatever. You can do like pretty much everything that you want, and it's it's quite good. Cool actually. The thing is, I think. there are few stuff that are missing. On the security side, is maybe like dev tools, etc., that are still missing. So, I mean, on the Web2 space, you have many developer tools that help you to debug stuff, to like be faster at coding, etc. I think this is where we are lacking like resources, and I think it's getting better and better, but still it's slowing the whole ecosystem down because we don't have like proper debugging tools. That's more on the developer builder side of things. So having more developer tools can be like a good unlock for the space. The other thing is how to bring more institutions on chain. Having more like technology around like on-chain KYC or like a privacy preserving stuff technology will, but this more like a very long-term thing in the 1-2 year. This will be quite needed. And also there's this kind of trend where and everyone wants to be a primitive, and you had that narrative like a infra versus applications. I think we need to work on both, to be honest. Like the infrastructures are not good enough. I mean, it's getting there, but we still need to improve and iterate. And the application side of things, same thing. Like we are not there yet. I think the UX should be as if you are using a fintech company or Revolut or whatever, Trade Republic, Robinhood. It should be as simple as that, and we are not there yet. We're still like with seed phrase. We're still with you if you have a safe or whatever, you still fear whenever you do like a big transaction that you're missing something or what. So I think like working on the UX is also one of the biggest and for instance we are allocating like a lot of resources actually to improve the front end of Morpho because it's more complex than overlaying protocols, so we need to abstract away most of the complexity, and this requires like a huge challenge. So abstracting away the complexity of the DeFi space is a huge topic to tackle.
Absolutely. We all want to onboard another 1 billion of people, but sometimes also if you're a degen, you're struggling in front of something, right? You double check the
Yeah,
transaction 25 times. You
yeah,
send
yeah,
the
yeah.
first transaction of $10. Like, come on, guys. So it is like that. But I love that you have the attention to the UX, and you are also investing resources and time and energy to make it happen and to make it more accessible to people that are more normies, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, today.
Okay, so we are getting to the conclusion to it. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart from this fantastic chat that we had today. It was super interesting. I learned a lot, so I had my specific questions already prepared for you.
No,
On the
thank you.
topic of the
Thank you
slide.
for your time.
And to if we want to close this beautiful podcast with you, what do you wish for more for, or what do you want to say to the user? So do you want to discuss with the DJ and say, okay guys, loop more? Do you want to do you want to have more credit curator, more risk curator? So who would you like to come to Morpho tonight apart from builders?
No, I think yeah. No, I would like to remind like why we are doing this is because the whole financial system is kind of broken. It's opaque, it's not open, it's not efficient, it's not resilient. There's so many stuff that we need to fix, and the DeFi space is here and to solve all those challenges. And I think that sometimes protocols projects tends to forget that. And I think like coming back to those principles and values from time to time is good because it's basically the your overall objective, and like everything that the decision that you make should be aligned with your values. And at Morpho, we try to remind ourselves about those different objectives as much as possible to create like financial infrastructures that are more that are open, that are resilient, efficient, and transparent. And those are the key thing that we are chasing, and we think that it will greatly improve and impact positively everyone on Earth if we succeed in making this. But it's not Morpho alone. So it's all the risk creators, as you said, it's all the users, it's all the funds, it's all the other protocols, but it's all the whole DeFi ecosystem as well. And we need to more to be in a space where we collaborate more, and that we are fighting together against that legacy financial system instead of like trying to kill ourselves in the foot. So just like try to keep those values alive, be mindful and build.
That was a super strong closing, Merlin. I loved it. So I think I completely agree with you. We share the same value. This is the reason why HyperNest exists, to build a better financial system, more
So
equal,
cool.
more egalitarian, transparent, with less gatekeepers. And
Definitely.
fantastic. I love it. I really love it. Well, thanks again, and it was fantastic discussing with you. And well, Morpho, it's beautiful, and we can't wait to see what else can be built on Morpho.
Yeah, can't say
And
anything, but we'll ship the cool stuff. That's for
yeah,
sure.
you keep shipping. Okay, great,
Yeah,
great. Love that. I love
of
that.
course.
I love that. Okay, thanks again, and have a beautiful day, man.
Thanks, Alessio. Bye bye.